Dr. Neri Karra Sillaman, very nice to meet you. Thank you so much for being here and talking to us at the Dave Alexander Center for Social Capital. We are very pleased to meet you and very pleased to talk to you.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for inviting me.
So I want to introduce you, and but I don't want to take up the whole half an hour interview introducing you, but I could because you are doing so many things and have done so many things. I almost don't even know, where to start. You're an entrepreneurship expert at Oxford University, an adjunct professor at multiple other universities. You are the author of a wonderful new book that's just come out that we're going to talk about. And then if that wasn't enough, you are the founder of an extraordinary company called Neri Karra. And so we're going to talk about all of those things. But what an incredibly eclectic individual you are. So thank you for doing all the things that you do and for making the world a better place in the way that you do it.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I want to start off by just asking you about your background here a little bit because you have a very interesting journey to entrepreneurship. And rather than put words in your mouth, I would love you to just tell our listeners you came from an immigrant background, and that's part of your book actually, and part of your story. Tell our listeners and our viewers, how did you get here from there?
Sure. So I was born in Bulgaria, and I was born to a Turkish ethnic minority family. And I was born in 1978. In the 1980s, the communist Bulgarian government decided they are going to carry out an ethnic assimilation process against Turkish minorities. And that meant our names were changed. We were not allowed to practice our religion, our culture. And in some ways, we were in some ways segregated because the same opportunities that are available to others were not available to us. We were not able to have the kind of education that one dreams of. And in fact, we lived together in the same area with the Roma gypsies. And I went to school. We went to school all together with the Roma gypsies, and few of Bulgarian families who will come from broken families or just not, it was very challenging times growing up. But I want to also say I love Bulgaria, and I had a wonderful childhood, except that very quickly around first grade, second grade, when the ethnic assimilation process was being carried out, I recognized that there is something wrong because my parents were on the run. They didn't want our names to be changed. One winter, I slept 6 months, about that whole winter, not 6 months, 3 months, hiding from the communist soldiers who wanted to change our names. And my father was a very proud man, he still is, who didn't want his name to be changed, and who didn't want his kids' names to be changed. And then basically the assimilation process came to an end when one evening Todor Zhivkov came on TV and said anyone who is Turkish needs to leave the country. And in June of 1989, my parents took 2 suitcases, myself and 9-year-old brother, and we headed to the Turkish border. And when we crossed, I will never forget my father's screams and the sadness in my mother's eyes, who didn't want to leave. And of course, it was very challenging, and I also know 2 things. I had 2 realizations. One was my childhood just ended. I'm no longer an 11-year-old. And the second one is that the way out of this will be if I get a good education. I need to get a good education. And it was something that I held on to as my North Star. It defines everything I do today. It defines everything I do in life. It's one of the reasons I also am in academia. I still like
Mm.
teaching very much. It's one of the reasons I wrote the book. It's a very defining moment in my life because education is the reason why I do what I do.
So, extraordinary story of overcoming amazing adversity, and you're talking about things almost in passing that any one of us, if we had to deal with, could be a life-changing or life-ending experience. You overcame many of those moments, which is incredible, and your memories. Thank you for sharing those.
Sure.
So, fast forward a little bit from there to how do you get from there to then founding this company?
Oh, it's a very long story because it doesn't happen overnight. But I also
Mm,
want to say this adversity, it's the story of many, many refugees and immigrants. I am one of
hmm
the
hmm
very lucky ones who ends up getting an education, who ends up creating a business. And I'm very lucky because there are many people today whose lives are whose lives are stopped and the life they knew before no longer is, and they have to
Yeah.
rebuild their lives. They don't necessarily get to have this chance that I did. So for me, um, the way we started our company is, as I said, it's quite a long story, but my parents started to work in any jobs they could find, from being an
Mm.
illegal cab driver. My mom was worked at a textile factory. Then she was a cleaner at a medical factory.
And
Um,
where is this, by the way, for
in
context? What
Istanbul.
in Istanbul?
In
Okay.
Istanbul. We immigrated, well, we were in Istanbul. We were first in a refugee camp, and the way out of a refugee camp was through a long lost relative that my father tracked down, and eventually my parents have to do any jobs they could find in order to put bread on the table. And in fact,
Yeah.
many nights we wouldn't have bread.
Wow.
I was very determined. I think that decision at the border really changed something for me. And I don't even look at it as overcoming adversity. It wasn't like that when I was living it, because I'm not in the middle of it thinking I'm overcoming adversity. But for me, I'm so focused on getting an education because I saw it as a way that will help me have a better life. Um, in the meantime, my father, with himself, carried a business card. Years ago, before we immigrated, he met a Turkish man while we were vacationing, and he kept his business card. And when we finally immigrated, and the Berlin Wall will also fall down, which meant the end of communism, and many Soviet republics and Russia, people who lived there started to travel to Turkey and want to find something, want to find these textiles and leather products, and they will bring them back in their suitcases, sell them in their countries, and come back again. And in the meantime, my father also went to Russia to see what opportunities he could find there, because culturally, because we have also lived in communism, it's mandatory that you have to start learning Russian from the age of 8. So we spoke
Mm.
Russian, we spoke the languages, but also culturally, i I would say not culturally, but more, you have a shared historical experience of having lived in communism and also wanting a better life for yourself, because people who lived in communism, they wanted a better life for themselves too, now that communism was over. So when my father visited Russia and former Soviet republics, he noticed that people were carrying their belongings in plastic bags. And he
Mm.
decided, if I sold wallets and bags, it will work. There is a business opportunity here.
Okay.
And he went to the person who we met years ago, 15 years ago, and went to his factory and said, I'm not here to work at your factory, but I have a proposal. If you give me a couple of wallets, bags, let me test the market. I want to, and you don't have to pay me anything. I'm going to sell them. And he did that. And when he came back, he said, I have a business proposal for you to open a store in the so-called luggage trade area. By the way, this was one of the biggest contributors to the Turkish economy at the time. It's what held the Turkish economy, the luggage traders, people who were coming from former
Mm.
Soviet republics, buying goods in the Grand Bazaar area, bringing everything back to their country, selling it in street markets because no stores existed at the time.
Hmm.
This is in the early 90s. And then the idea was that the person who owned the factory opens a tiny store uh, with no name actually at the time. We found the store and it was an apartment building on the second floor. It wasn't even like a nice, when I say a store, basically a space. And we put up a sign that said, please come in for a homeland cup of coffee. And we wrote it in Romanian, in Russian, in Ukrainian, in all the Stan languages, all the
Mhm.
Eastern European and Russian languages, because it really was, please come in for a coffee. It wasn't come and buy products from us. It was, and we bonded over that. That's how the business really started. Because the idea wasn't come in so I can sell you my products. The idea was more, and I talk about it in the book, Homophilic Ties. So that's how we initially started, but it wasn't our own brand. It was basically selling products of someone else and making commission out of them. At the time, I was about 14, 15 years old and taking the owners of the Turkish company and my father to Italy to the trade fair. That happens twice a year. It used to happen in Bologna, now it's in Milano.
Mhm.
That's where all the top producers of leather and metal accessories exhibit their products. This gave me almost it was an internship, but on steroids, because I was able to really understand how it all works and who the top manufacturers of leather products are, of leather skins are. Even with those Italian suppliers, it was very much everything based on friendship. We will go have pizza together. We will um, visit each other's homes. They invited us to their homes, and the Turkish manufacturer will buy some products from them. And then when the idea, after I graduated from University of Miami, I received financial aid and I went to University of Miami to do my bachelor degree. I graduated in 2.5 years.
Oh, wow.
Came, yes, came back and had the business idea to start our own brand, Neri Karra. And the idea was to buy the offcuts and the leather skins that these fantastic manufacturers are throwing away or giving for
Oh.
free or for very little. And that's why frying in your own oil, being self-sufficient concept comes from. You have to do the best with what you have.
Mm.
So we created the mobile phone covers for Nokia because in those markets, I mean, when Nokia first came out, people really liked, especially in Russia and Eastern European markets, you like to show off your phone and you would carry it on your belt with and women will have beautiful phone covers and show
Hmm.
them off. So we made them all from Italian leather, exceptional craftsmanship. That's how the business started. And I told you a very condensed story, of course.
No, but it's a great story, and it's a incredible example of capitalism and how capitalism works. And what's extraordinary is it was a story of capitalism that was not born in America, but in a place
No,
where capitalism really is not thought to exist even.
exactly.
And so it almost points to the very natural and organic essence of capitalism, that this comes out of humanity. Really, it's just a naturally born thing that you guys said, hey, how can we make a business? And that is the best way to create opportunity for our family and for
Exactly.
others as well. So a wonderful story from that regard as well. So I know you're condensing a lot, and I appreciate that. But there's so much to talk about, and the I'm sure you already mentioned a few of these principles, as it were. But the book that you've got coming out, or that is out now, actually, Pioneers: 8 Principles of Business Longevity from Immigrant Entrepreneurs. I'm gonna put you on the spot and say, can you quickly at least tell our listeners, what are the 8 principles?
Absolutely. One, cross-cultural bridging. The second
Mm,
one is having a vision. I'm paraphrasing. They are titled in
mhm.
much better way. Um, having Building the business with homophilic ties, which is birds of a feather that flock together, and how
Mm.
you are able to do that with people who are not necessarily from your own kin, and how you can take this, that immigrant entrepreneurs, often when they move to another country, they don't necessarily tend to go together with people who are from their own ethnicity. It's not that, but they will use historic data. It's used in a very strategic way. They will try to find common values, common shared
Ah,
historical understanding with people,
okay.
and establish ties that are similar to familial ties. And this helps them greatly when they are building a business.
No, that's great. We kind of call that in modern, corporate speak, finding your tribe.
Exactly.
And
Yes.
yeah, and
Yes.
I love that. I love that. Okay, so
And,
please, yeah,
and
go on.
community is a very important one. Shared values, frying in your own oil, which is one of the most unique ones, I would say, because it's a wisdom that comes from my grandfather, and it means to be self-sufficient, to grow in a way that is not too fast, to grow in a way that is sustainable, that your borrowing matches your profitability. And that's a
Mm.
concept called frying in your own oil. Um, how many did we count? And I have the copy of the book right here that I can that I can take and peek into it. But there's also one about luck. I had
Ah,
to. That's the very last principle in the book, because when I was interviewing the immigrant entrepreneurs, something that really stood out to me, how often they will talk about luck. And I thought that was fascinating. And before I start conducting my interviews, I was sure, because my PhD was on ethnic entrepreneurship, international entrepreneurship, more or less, I thought I'm going to know and it's maybe the wrong way, but part of me thought that. But I was very surprised once I started to talk to them, very surprised. And it made me stop and rethink everything I knew. For example, luck is one of the principles that I didn't think. It's the 8 principles. I didn't think of writing about it. It's not something that you will see in a business book, or it's not something that is almost immediately jumps at you. But often they talked about luck and the role of luck. And it's very similar in the case of my father, where he meets a Turkish businessman when he is vacationing in Bulgaria, and that's like seeing a unicorn.
Hmm.
Because at the time this is communism, nobody stays in Bulgaria. There are no foreigners who can, they can come in, but they have to, if they are passing through. It's a closed country. So especially Turkish people, they, from Turkey, they couldn't come in. But he was there on the beach that day, and I was singing a song, and he overheard me, and he approached my parents saying, "Are you Turkish?" And the rest is history. But for
Hmm.
that, luck can happen to you, but it's how you recognize. You have to be able to
Hmm.
recognize it. And something, the fruits of it may not come into the picture for years later.
Yeah.
And what you do with that luck. So often in the interviews, I interviewed Dominique Ansel. He owns Dominique Ansel Bakery. He's from France. He immigrated to New York. He started his business, and it's an exceptional one. So he said, I am lucky that I met my wife. I am lucky that, Kronat, the pastry that he put him on the map, that Kronat was featured in the press and it got the attention it did. But as I'm talking to him, I also realize, and I have many examples like this luck didn't just happen. It's
Hmm.
Oprah says it, luck is what happens when opportunity meets preparation.
Hmm.
Like you have to be ready for it. You have
Yeah.
to be able to recognize it, and there is a lot of work involved. It doesn't just happen.
Well, I'm glad you said that because, that I'm sure you've talked about that in the book, as well. But the idea that luck is important is, I think, paramount to us not becoming so arrogant, right? That we just think, oh, it's everyone everyone that works hard will just have this happen. There is some degree of luck involved,
Absolutely.
obviously, but it is what you do with that luck once that luck does happen, because there are people that just don't see that luck or look past it or
Yes.
don't want to do the hard work, and so being able to capitalize on that is extremely important. And I think that goes back to that immigrant root and aspect as well. My grandparents came from an immigrant background as well. And I think there is something in common in that immigrant experience of, um, maybe it's a little bit of that frying in your own oil as well, which is we are going to maximize whatever we have, whatever
Exactly.
situation we have, whatever potential we have, whatever resources we have, we are going to maximize the use of those. We may not have what a lot of other luckier people have, but
Mhm.
we are going to maximize what we have and the luck that we have. So I love your perspective on it. And I think that, there's a lot that people can learn outside of immigrants from that too, because if everyone can act that way that the immigrant has to act, and you don't have the challenges and you have the opportunities, maybe even more so, you can have even more success. So I think your book is incredibly applicable to just about everyone, and would have
Yes.
such a powerful appeal to just about everyone. Um,
And
Tell me.
one other, sorry to
Oh, no, no, go ahead.
is reframing. In the book, I talk about a principle called reframing because immigrant entrepreneurs and immigrants, they often come from very challenging backgrounds, but that doesn't mean they let that define them. They
Mm,
reframe their past, they even reframe, and because they are able to reframe their past, they are also able to reframe rejection and failure as well. So when they hear
hmm.
the word no, to them, it doesn't mean no. That's to them is the beginning of negotiation. If someone rejects them, that doesn't mean that they don't interpret it as a rejection, but they interpret as a detour or
Mm,
finding another way as an opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And when failures happen, it doesn't mean they say, oh, yeah, that's not a failure, but they are able to really be very honest with themselves and look at why the failure happened. One of the entrepreneurs in the book is Calendly's founder, Tope Avotona. Before he started Calendly, he had many of his businesses fail, but he didn't look at them as failure. Instead, there were lessons in each of these failures that he was able to learn from. And when he started Calendly, it started off on a very different footing.
Mm. Um, that, in so many books and in literature, we call that, recreating yourself. And it's the ultimate American experience of immigrants is, you come to this country and now you can be whatever you want to be. You don't have to be what you were where you came from. You don't have to live according to that. Uh, Former boss of mine, very good friend, was from England, and when I asked him, how he saw bringing up his children in America versus England, he says, "Well, here they can be whatever they want." And
Very interesting.
England's a Western country, right? I figured you could do the same thing there, and he said, "Absolutely not. In England, you are still under an obligation to do what your parents did. And if you try to go beyond that, you're thought of as being a little too big for your britches. Why do
I
you
see.
think you can be different? Do what your father did." And I found that fascinating. So that reframing is, I think,
Yes,
such a powerful part of the immigrant experience, and one of the things I think that makes America great. Um,
I agree. I agree with you.
we have so much we could talk about. We're going to have to do another another half an hour to talk about all this. But I want to just cover a couple of quick things. First of all, the products that your company does are extraordinarily beautiful,
Thank you.
and powerful. And I would just tell everybody to please go check out nerikarra.com, because I mean, when I looked at these products, I didn't know about your company before, and I said, "Oh my God, these are some of the most exquisitely beautiful products that I've ever seen." And extraordinarily high end, but beautiful. And when I found out how you run your company, I was even more intrigued, because the idea of social responsibility is a very big part of how you run your company, from what I understand. And um,
It
that's
is.
that's everything to us, because that's what we're about, taking care of people. And I wanted to ask you a little bit about that. How and why did that become such an important part of how you run Neri Karra?
It has to do with my background, with our background. And again, I wouldn't say I run it, because this is my parents who are now running the company. We started it together.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not actively involved in the business anymore, because I want to do something that is very much my passion, and that's how Pioneers was born. But our immigrant background, the fact that we come from nothing, and we know what it is to be in a challenging circumstances, we know what it is, how you want a better life for your family, how you want to give the best possible education for your children, go for nice vacation yourself, be a human being. And this is very important. We need to respect people. They are our employees, but that doesn't mean we own them. And
Mm. Mm-hmm.
it's a, and I think from the very beginning, this was a huge element in how we run our business and how we treat our suppliers, our retailers, everything. And it's not just me. In the book, when I was doing my interviews, I was very much struck how similarly other immigrant entrepreneurs run their own businesses as well.
Interesting.
So that's
And
one of the important elements in the book, because it's about community, social capital, the value, shared value that by shared
yeah.
value, you have to respect anyone who comes in touch with your product or service from the very beginning to the very end. And if you don't do that, I don't think your business can have longevity. If you are thinking shorter term, where you think I'm going to go in, make a lot of money and exit, then obviously that's not going to bring business longevity. And the very premise of my book is about legacy.
Mm-hmm.
People who wanted to create these companies, they didn't start off with the mindset of I'm going to make profit. So one of the other principles is profit the right way. Of
Mm.
course, you have to have profit, but
Yeah.
that's not what was driving immigrant entrepreneurs when they were creating these exceptional companies. In the book, I talk about Moderna, Pfizer, Chobani, Google,
Yeah.
WhatsApp, Numity, Cobra Beer, Duolingo, Moderna. I mentioned Moderna, Wondery, Dermalogica. They didn't start off with the fact, let's make a quick buck and get
Yeah.
out.
Yeah. And the natural and compelling conclusion, though, which is the most powerful part of all this, I think, is that, you talk about, and you just, broached on it a little bit, but it doesn't come, this kind of community, people-centric, respectful approach, it does not come at the expense of profitability. These companies
Yes,
prosper very much so. And you talk about longevity, and in fact, they do better because of this perspective.
absolutely. This is such an important point. Because when you put other people at the heart of your business, you often think, it's you are part of this ecosystem. And I think people who come from immigrant backgrounds, from companies that don't have the right infrastructure, know that your company cannot prosper unless the ecosystem that you are part of prospers. If you don't have the right institutions, if you don't have the well-being of not only of your employees and suppliers, but even of nature, you cannot have a healthy business. So they
Yeah.
are very much aware of that, and they run businesses knowing they are part of this larger ecosystem.
So, like I said, we're going to have you back and have you
Sure,
talk
it will
about
be my
many things.
pleasure.
We'll have to have part two for sure, to talk about all the ways that people can do that and companies can do that, because you have so many extraordinary things to say and so much advice, to give, that is so perfectly coincident with our mission of social capital. So, we thank you for coming and talking about these, and we will look forward to having you back again very
Part
soon.
two. Sure.
So, Dr. Neri Karra Sillaman, thank you so very much. We want to
Thank
make
you,
sure
Chris.
everybody knows again, to go and check out the book Pioneers: 8 Principles of Business Longevity from Immigrant Entrepreneurs. And that is out now, and I'm sure you can get it at a lot of bookstores as well as on Amazon. And then, of course, to go and please check out the website of your family's company, www.nerikarra.com, because they're incredibly beautiful goods.
Thank
And
you.
and thank you so much for taking the time. We really are so pleased to know you.
Likewise, Chris. Thank you for inviting me.
You're very welcome.
Great.
Hey, that was wonderful. Uh, my God, I could talk to you for hours.
Yes,
This is,
was.
yeah, this is, we started this center last year. A little bit about me, real quickly, if you have a minute, because
Yeah.
I'd love to tell you a little bit about myself. I was a reporter years ago for People magazine and the tabloids, and I always say it was the greatest job that I ever hated, um,
Oh,
because I was in Hollywood, and I always say I was up to my scruples in the glitz and grime of Hollywood, and a lot of wealth, a lot of power, but I just met a lot of very selfish people who were very at odds with my immigrant background. And
Yeah.
my grandparents who came here with nothing and talked about the very things that you talk about, respecting people and helping people with what you do and service to others, and create something that people need, right? And then you'll make money. And it was very different in Hollywood. And I said, I got to get out of here. And so I wound up quitting and just walking away. um, I got, I had some luck, as you talk about it.
Yeah.
I wrote a book about people overcoming tough times. Our former president, George W. Bush, agreed to write an introduction for it.
Wow.
And it was really on a whim. I just reached out. I figured he'd say no, but he said yes. And I wound up then getting a special on Lifetime Television, again, just on a phone call. A lot of
Yeah.
luck. I really did have a lot of luck. Long story then, semi-short. I wound up having a lot of business leaders ask me to help them write their books after I'd written 4 or 5. And I met a lot of great business leaders who had an attitude like yours, helping others, longevity. That's how we want to, lead our business. And I loved these entrepreneurs so much that I said, we need to bring more attention to these kinds of people because they're not getting the attention. Who's getting the attention are these quick exit people.
Yes.
I read about it on LinkedIn, and I'm sure you do all the time, right? I get these emails and I read these LinkedIn posts. What's your exit plan? You should have your exit plan ready to go before you even start your company. And I'm like, what is this about?
Yeah, raising money. Like we raised
Yeah.
2 million. We raised 20 million, whatever.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
well, what does your company do? Well, it doesn't matter what it does. If you can just get an exit plan. And it's so disturbing when I read about these people. And I said, we have to create an embassy for service leadership companies that are built to actually help others and to create a product that people need and to help their employees, to help people in their community, to grow the pie, instead of just trying to take a bigger piece of it. And so, we started this about 2 years ago. The response has been extraordinary, the critical response and the number of CEOs and people coming forward.
Nice.
So we are so excited when we meet people like you,
Very nice.
who are really not just building companies like this. You and your family built this extraordinary company, and we want to give credit to those companies and put a spotlight on those companies, but also talking about this. And thank you so much for writing this book and for speaking about these principles and ideas from such an authoritative point of view, because we need more people like you who can eloquently defend these ideas and these principles. And that point that I made at the end there with you, and that you made so eloquently, it's more profitable too. These companies do better in the long run. And you brought up some great examples of those companies with Chobani and whatnot. We're still trying to get a hold of the Chobani CEO and interview him, and I cannot reach him.
It's very hard. I know. It's very hard.
So I don't know why, but if you know anyone who knows him, please tell him we want to talk to him.
I will. I will.
But thank you so much. We really do appreciate this. A quick question about who is actively running your company now? Is it
my parents?
It's your parents. Okay.
My
all
parents, right. Yes, the 2 of them.
That's wonderful.
Yes.
Yeah. So we might want to talk to them at some point too, if they'd be open to it.
They don't speak English.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
I'm the only one in my family who I'm the first one to go to school. And
wow.
The first one to learn English.
Well, maybe we'll have to have you back with them on just to say hi. That would be kind of fun.
They will be very embarrassed.
But that can be kind of fun too. Yes. So where is your company based now, by the way?
We have a factory in Istanbul and in Bulgaria. In Bulgaria, we have the online operations. We have a store, not more like a wholesale store, And in Turkey, in Istanbul, we have the manufacturing, and we also produce for Prada and Miu Miu as well. We
Okay.
produce their goods in
But
addition to our own.
yeah, you sell worldwide though, right?
Yes, we do.
Yeah,
We do. We
yeah,
do.
yeah. It's incredible. Like I said, I was so blown away by those products and whatnot.
Thank you.
Well,
Please, I will ask you after, I will send you an email, but if you have a mailing address, please give me your mailing address and I will send you a card holder that I created for the book. And
oh my goodness, that would
yes,
be wonderful. I would love that.
I think you will really like it.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
My pleasure.
Okay, well, hey, thank you so much, and we'll be in touch again soon.
Thank you, Chris.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank
Have a
you.
lovely day.
Okay,
Bye.
you too. Bye bye.
Bye.